Hi guys, hope you're doing well. This here's kind of a quick prophecy update, just on things that I'm seeing happening, and going on. So I thought it'd be kind of interesting to kind of just throw this out there and let people be aware of what I'm seeing and kind of the conclusions I come to. And these are just what ifs, I mean, these are just scenarios that could possibly be happening, and we definitely, like I said before, Christ warns us to be looking and ready, and like he says in Mark in 13, last verse, he says, what I say to you, I say to all, be on the alert. So be ready, be looking, be vigilant. As Christians, we needed to know what's going on. So anyway, with something interesting kind of came out was with the whole Trump thing happening right now. And I'm not being political in a sense. I think that we just have to be astute as Christians to be aware of what's going on. I didn't vote for Trump. I typically don't vote. So I believe that we are ambassadors for Christ, not ambassadors for any particular country. That's my view on it. Obviously, there's people, Christians, who think that we need to be involved politically. I disagree. I think that we need to be involved spiritually in the world. We need to be, we're not, our citizenship is in heaven. It's not here. So, I look at it as I'm an ambassador for the Lord. My citizenship is in heaven. It's not here. I don't, pick and choose one group of people over another. I think everyone needs to be evangelized. That's not a Christian, and all my Christian brothers, regardless of what part of the world they live in, what country they live in, I love them and care for them just as equally as somebody who lives in America. So with that said, what I would say is we do need to keep an eye on what's going on. And if you haven't had a chance, watch my other videos, like, subscribe, share it with other people, other Christians you think might benefit from them. But I definitely believe that we as Christians are called to a higher calling, not to pick and choose and fight wars and do things like that. Our goal is to be a citizen for the Lord, to be an ambassador for him, and to be a witness for him to all people, all nations. And that's what he said: go out and make disciples of all men. He didn't say go out and make disciples of people in your country, or people that are being nationalistic in that sense. But we do need to be aware of what the globalist agenda is. And the globalist agenda is to have a global government. And we know ultimately that's what's going to happen. And the Antichrist is going to rule that final configuration of it, however that works out. Like I said, it would be, I think, 10 regional leaders of some sort that will ultimately be the one who gives their power and authority to the Antichrist, who will then take power. Will the United States be the leader of this? UN is situated in the United States. America's government is going through a lot of turmoil with a nationalist in office right now, which is Trump, which is interesting. Some things have, corresponds with him and his leadership, his name, Trump, to announce these kind of things, to trumpet, what his name is, and he just so happens to announce that the movement in recognition of Jerusalem as the sovereign capital of Israel and the Jewish people, playing into the whole Joel 3 alliance. You get a chance, you can watch that video. I kind of go into that, and now they're talking about the annexation and so forth. But in regards to how you feel about him, what's significant in my opinion, what's happening right now is, are we looking at a possible coup d'etat? Are we looking at where the globalists, when they start bringing up people like Colin Powell and past generals and stuff like this, General Allen and General Mattis and stuff, when they're coming out and they're saying things like he's a liar, he's told multiple lies, he's undermining the Constitution, in essence of what they're saying, and that he's going against the Constitution. I mean, these are treasonous kind of words and actions. And it makes you think, okay, wait a minute, this isn't normal language. This isn't language that you commonly hear. And why is it that the military are the ones who are spearheading this, which tells you that, when you're going to have a coup d'etat, you've got to have the military on your side, because ultimately, if you don't, it's going to fail, because, the president can simply call up the military and find yourself in military arrest and in prison and potentially tried for treason and, hung or shot. So those are the things that can happen. So it's very serious accusations, and it's a very serious time for this country and for America and the world, because it plays into how a role that, when I was talking about that, America could be that force, as it were, that that plays into this whole alliance, as it were, regional alliance that is a form of Rome. This vestige of Rome that becomes this part of this Roman Empire, revived Roman Empire, which is more of a globalistic empire, unlike any other it talks about, and how it tries to merge itself together, but it doesn't really adhere well to each other and so forth. Well, if that's the case, and it's a big if, it's definitely out there, then what's going on with Trump could be interesting. What we see when they're bringing out these journals and they're making statements like Colin Powell saying, the country is getting wise to this, talking about his insults, all this, and we're not going to put up with it anymore. Well, what do you mean by that? And then when he talks about, how Trump was a birther and, he had issues with Obama and, not really having a real birth certificate and experts being able to dissect it, and so forth like that, which they claim that, you shouldn't be able to do with a real document that's been scanned and so forth. Whatever. It'd be here or there. But the point being is that these arguments, when you say these kind of things, and basically he said, well, it was because he was black, which basically he was saying Trump's a racist. That's basically what he's saying. So you got a guy like Colin Powell's coming out saying, Trump's a racist. Trump is, undermining the sovereignty of the United States. We're not going to take this anymore type language. That's very dangerous language. And that's language coming from somebody who's not a small-time guy. This is a guy who's, really considered a power mover or shaker within, in a lot of ways in Washington. I mean, this guy who served a lot of presidents, has worked in very high offices, things like that. I mean, this is not a small-time figure. So, and he definitely is part of what I would consider his support of the more globalist type minded presidents for sure he served. And here's the guy who basically helped to articulate the arguments to invade Iraq and was part of the first Gulf War and so forth. This guy has definitely been involved in a lot of stuff that is more, in my opinion, suited more to the globalist than to anyone who would be a part of that. So anyway, I found it interesting. And then when you look at what General Allen was saying about Trump and so forth, and it's just weird that they would bring out these military people, almost like they're trying to say, garner the support of the leadership of the military, to support some type of arrest, as it were, of Trump, some removal from office, and it's something to keep an eye on as Christians, because not that we should be engaged in the affairs of the world in the sense of some people try to tell us we need to be part of it and take up arms. I totally disagree with that. I don't believe that Christians have any part in waging war. I think 2 Corinthians chapter 10, 3 through 5 is perfectly clear that we don't wage war like with carnal weapons. Our weapons are what? To defeat and bring down strongholds in the form of our words and using the spiritual powers that we come up against. Going back to Ephesians chapter 6, our enemy is not physical but spiritual forces in heavenly realms that are working behind the scenes, manipulating these people who think they're doing a good thing. I honestly believe that Colin Powell and these globalists, they think they're actually doing the world a service. They actually think that they're trying to help humanity to prevent greater catastrophe and wars and dictators and and all this stuff. I think they believe what they're doing is for the benefit of mankind, but I believe they're also entirely wrong and being manipulated behind the scenes by spiritual forces to do the bidding of ultimately Satan, who knows that his hour is short, and ultimately the Antichrist to come on the scene, which begs the argument, who is the Antichrist? And if Trump is removed from office, who would replace him? These kind of things you start thinking about, is America possibly potentially that beast empire, or part of a new configuration of a global empire that becomes this final beast empire, and the United States is part of that final imagination of the revived Roman Empire, only it's a global form of it. And you could see parts of Europe, partaking of that. You could see parts of the Western Hemisphere of America, Canada, others partaking of that. It would be, you could definitely see that happening if a globalist was put into that position, especially one who is actually the Antichrist, with his cohort in support of him, the false prophet, one who's speaking for him, doing a lot of his bidding, so forth, having like it talks about the two little horns of a lamb, but speaking like a dragon, which I go into in the video of the false prophet. You could see where someone who claims to be a Christian has the image and the reputation of being a Christian and so forth, i.e. the lamb, but actually speaking the words of Satan, i.e. the dragon, and speaking basically ultimately the worship and servitude towards this Antichrist being. I could see that happening. I'm not saying that's the case, but definitely something that is potentially one, especially when you start thinking about they're talking about a peace agreement in Israel right now, which exactly falls in line with what we see in Daniel chapter 9:27, which means Antichrist has to be on the scene. We see the apostasy taking place in the world. We see instability, the 2 Timothy, chapter 4, hatred and venom taking place of the youth and so forth in throughout the world, not just the United States. The disrespect. I mean, you can go through these verses, and I can read them off to you and read you some of these. But the point being is that this is just going to be a short prophecy update, as it were, of are we looking at a potential coup d'état of the removal of arrest or whatever, removal of Trump from office, where they're saying he's acting unconstitutional, and then who would be put into his place? Who would naturally fit into that? And you could see where potentially the person who's orchestrating certain events at the behest of none other than Satan, we could see as possibly potentially the Antichrist coming to power with his support standing in the wings, as it were, the false prophet. You could see someone like Jared Kushner. You could see somebody like that too. I'm not saying he is the Antichrist, but I'm just saying right now, I definitely put him up there. I definitely put him on the accomplishments he's done, the way he is, the things that he's made happen. Very intriguing stuff. A very intriguing guy, potentially to look at. Could he then be moved into that position suddenly, quickly? We can see some strange things happening. So anyway, just something to be thinking about. And if they're bringing up these guys, it's nothing more than just people giving their opinion. Hey, we don't trust this guy, blah blah. He's acting the way we don't like. He's that's one thing. But when you start seeing them say things like he's acting unconstitutional, he lies all the time, he's dangerous, he's threatening the American people with the military army, he's doing things like that. And granted, I don't like some of the things Trump says either. I mean, he's very boisterous, very prideful, very arrogant. He's surrounded himself with people who are pseudo-Christian at best. Not even that in a lot of ways. I mean, people we would sit there and really say would be the last people you'd surround yourself with, Paul White and others. But the point being is that, if we're looking for, if the end times is near, if what we see taking place, the national alignments, the structures, the annexation of Judea Samaria, the basically fulfillment of Joel chapter 3 verses 1 and 2, the basically the restoration of Jerusalem and Judea now, because that's what they're talking about. Ultimately, that was the piece that was missing. If that happens, which could happen in the near future, this could perfectly line up. And I'm just saying we need to keep an eye on it. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying that Kushner's the Antichrist, but I'm just simply saying we need to be aware of it. And we as Christians need to be wise. Ultimately, I think he'll be revealed to Christians anyway before the rapture takes place and before we go into the tribulation. He has to be in power, I think, to ultimately cement the deal, to confirm the 7-year peace agreement, which ultimately I think may be very near. If that's what we're looking at, it could be something that happens, gets kicked down the road 50 years, 100 years. I mean, that could happen. But with the national alignments, with everything happening, with the the movement of rebuilding the temple, all of that plays a role. The Sanhedrin, priesthood, all that stuff that's now in play, the restoration of Jerusalem to the Jewish people, acknowledgement by the most preeminent empire, or Gentile empire in the world, just like Rome was the most preeminent Gentile power that removed Israel. America is the most preeminent Gentile power that, basically acknowledges their authority back over the capital of Israel. I mean, all of this comes into play, and as Christians, we need to be wise to this. We need to be looking, but in the near future, real near future, we need to be looking and keep our eye on what's happening with the military and what's happening. Why did Trump suddenly announce the removal of 9,000 troops from Germany? That was a bit odd, to do that all of a sudden. Things like that we need to be looking at and seeing what's going on. Is he trying to bring them back home to protect himself? Does he know something that we don't, that there is a coup d'etat happening right now? Are these military ex-generals contacting people and saying, hey, we need to get this guy out of office and we need to arrest him? And we need to, if it was going to happen, it'd have to be away from Washington, D.C. probably. So he'd have to be, while he's transitioning, moving somewhere, and then suddenly they take him, arrest him, or who knows what. I think that we need to be looking at this as Christians. We need to be wise to this fact. We may be witnessing the coup d'etat take over the American government by the globalists in a sense that we've never seen before. Make no bones about it. The globalists have been running the show for a while, and I think they believe that what they're doing is right. They just don't. I think they're being completely manipulated by the true powers that be behind the scenes. Satan, the ultimate puppet master behind them, that's manipulating things. And I think, as he knows his hour short, I think he has his Antichrist, his seed, as it were, prepared and ready. So we may be seeing the revealing to at least Christians of the Antichrist. But we'll see what happens. But we do need to keep an eye on it. I thought this was important enough to make a video. I'm not somebody that usually goes around making these kind of videos. If you look at my history, I don't ever make them. But this is pretty unique. Spiritually speaking, it definitely gives me some weird vibes about the whole situation. And there's definitely something that we need to keep an eye on. So it could be totally wrong, and this could just be another weird event, and they're another political thing, and we move on from it, and Trump goes into the election process and either wins or loses, whatever takes place does. But we can all hope that that's the case. But at the end of the day, just weird things happening that we definitely need to keep an eye on. So be praying about it. Ask for the Lord's will to be done in this regard. Now, like I said, as Christians, we really shouldn't be, in my opinion, be caught up in politics. We should be doing the Lord's will, which is going out, making disciples of all men, spreading the gospel. But we do need to be aware. And part of that means we need to keep an eye on the things that are happening and seeing what's happening, so we're not caught unaware, and that we are looking at the times in which we live, and we are prepared for the Lord's coming and the rapture of the church and so forth. So, and sharing it with our Christian brothers and sisters, and sharing with the lost, so that they know that they don't have to go into the tribulation. Could you imagine sending people into the tribulation when they didn't have to? I mean, you're talking about at least 2/3 of all mankind, possibly potentially more. It can be as much as, as high as 11 out of every 12 people. It could be that high, depending on how you look at the judgments and the death tolls it talks about. But at least 2/3 of the population will be eliminated and be dead within 7 years once they enter the tribulation period. I mean, that's pretty scary, and nobody wants anybody to go into that if they don't have to. I mean, the judgments are unbelievable. So the death toll would be unimaginable, so nobody wants that. So no rational person would. So anyway, so we need to be praying for wisdom, guidance, discernment, but definitely keep an eye on it. If it is what I think could potentially be, this would probably happen relatively soon, really quick. So we definitely need to be in prayer about it. Anyway, God bless. Be safe. Be looking up and trust in the Lord. It's not something for us to be fearful. We know that the Lord's with us, irregardless of what takes place. So, but it does mean we need to be aware. Just like Jesus said, hey, I'll read it real quick for you because I think it's that important. So we'll scan it real quick. So if you turn with me to where he's talking about us being aware and being alert. He says, we'll look at a couple of them actually, but we'll go to Matthew 24, 42. There he says, therefore, be on the alert, for you do not know the day when the Lord is coming. And he goes on to say even more. He says, for this reason I say to you, you must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour when you do not think he will. So nobody's thinking he is right now. I mean, I don't think anybody is, but we as Christians who are aware and alert and looking, we shouldn't be caught off guard. We should be like the wise virgins. We also see the same warning, which I think really does, one of the better ones would be Mark 13. And in the last verse 33, take heed, keep on the alert, for you do not know when the appointed time will come. And he goes on before that, just a few verses before that, even so, when you see these things happen, recognize that it is near, even at the door, verse 29 of Mark 13. But the one I want to get to is 37, the final one. He says, what I say to you, I say to all, be on the alert. Well, how are you going to be on the alert if you're not even looking, not ready? So we need to be looking, we need to be ready, we need to be aware of the potentialities of what's taking place and around us politically, geopolitically, what's taking place with the nation alignments that we see for Gog-Magog alliance. We see those things happening. Of all places, we see them in Syria, the mountains of Israel. We see them in Libya, which is i.e. Put, and the Gog-Magog alliance. Who do we see there? Russia. We see Turkey, Beth Tamar, these kind of nation alignments that are basically operating in exactly the nation states that the Bible says will come up against Israel in the latter days. And we also see the Joel prophecy of Joel 3, 1 and 2, which talks about the restoration or the acknowledgement of Israel's sovereign control over, which is what that restoration, I think, is referring to, which I don't think anybody can deny that. One is Jerusalem, and the second is Judea. So we see Jerusalem's already done with the acknowledgement by the United States, movement of its headquarters or its embassy there, so forth. But now they're talking about the annexation of Judea. We can see that take place in some kind of peace agreement, and we see peace agreement being talked about. We see so many things that fit prophecy right now. We need to be aware. We need to be looking. So this is just one more of them that, when you start seeing them bring out these kind of people like Colin Powell, who's a total globalist in many ways, and supports, or not in many ways, is a total globalist. When you see these kind of people coming out and all of them talking and saying things like they're saying, calling for things against a sitting president that I've never seen, I've never heard. Just weird things. It gives you weird thoughts about and feelings about, hey, what's going on here? That I think that they think that he's being unconstitutional. He's dangerous. He's dangerous for the world, dangerous for the country, and I think we may see some move against him in some kind of coup d'etat to take him out of the office of presidency, either I think they would try to arrest him and basically bring him before trial and say, that he's being removed from office forcibly, in a sense. I could see something like that happen, and who they put in his place is the big question at that point. And are we seeing the revealing of the Antichrist? These are things that Christians be praying about, but definitely be looking, paying attention. So anyway, God bless, be safe, keep looking up, and as Christ said, be looking and be ready. So be looking and be ready, and if I don't see you in this world, I'll see you in the kingdom to come. God bless.